As we get the microphone. Good morning. It's Gary Mauris from the DLC Group head office. For all of you joining us on the West Coast, good morning, and for those of you joining us on the East Coast, good afternoon. I am incredibly honored today and proud to host this Zoom call with a dear friend of mine, but way more importantly, someone who has had a incredible impact on the way we do business, the way we operate, the way we lead. Probably one of the most inspirational and helpful people, that I've come across in many, many years. My guest today, Darren Hardy, obviously is for those of you that don't know, the former editor and owner of Success Magazine. He has interviewed and featured, most of the world's greatest and most iconic business leaders, including Mr. Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and so many more. He is also the best-selling author of two of my favorite books, The Compound Effect and The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. And I think what Darren does best, better than any other, person in his field out there, is I think that he really, really is one of the foremost experts on leadership and building, top performers. Darren from San Diego, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, good morning. Delighted to be with you and your illustrious team. It's great.
Yeah. We have, there's about 2,000 of us on this call today, Dare. And, wow. A lot of them are mortgage professionals and some of our owners and their invited guests. And we've been, talking up this interview over the last couple of weeks, and we know it isn't something that you normally do. So just on behalf of all of us, again, thank you very much. So let me jump right in, Derek. Just I know with you, it's all about preparation and trying to deliver as much as possible and influence as many people. And, we are in crazy times right now. I mean, this COVID-19 crisis is unlike anybody else has seen, and it's uncharted waters for so many of us. But, what are your thoughts on where we are today with the COVID-19 crisis, and maybe put into perspective on if and how this could be different from any other crises we've been through or periods of strife?
Yeah. So first off, good on you for doing this, Gary, for stepping up and being a leader and helping people. That's kind of what we're about at this point right now. I was explaining to you before, this is what we're built for. We help people like you through times like this, through famine and fortune. And so anyway, I just think this is amazing at what you're putting together for your network. So I'm feeling a few things. One, I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling fascinated, and I'm feeling excited. So let me explain. So first off, scared. And I'm not scared for me, and I'm not scared for my team, but I'm scared for the 32 million business owners that there are, just even within the United States, and then you include all of North America. Half those small business owners are going to get wiped out from this crisis. Just clobbered. The other half are going to struggle, and they're going to struggle for a long time. I think what happens, as Buffett said, when the tide goes out, you get to see who has been swimming naked. Right. There's a lot of people who have been skating on thin ice. And this only accelerated a little bit of their reality. I think that the weak are going to get washed out, and the fortunes are going to go to the strong. So there will be that small percentage that we call the exception, that this is going to be boom times. These are going to be times that they will thrive. So, but I am scared for the majority of those that are out there right now. So that's number one. Number two is I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated to watch human behavior. We all know that crisis doesn't create character, but it reveals character. And we're getting a chance to see how the character of our fellow species is, really is. I spent some time with Chris Voss, the hostage negotiator, and he said, nobody rises, they just drop back to their previous highest level of preparation. They drop back to their base defaults. And so we're seeing a lot of people, when presented with crisis, that are dropping back to their base defaults. And so I read an article that kind of outlined what some of the current trends were about our behavior. And this is what most people are doing, is they're doubling down on their worst habits. Liquor sales are up 75%. Wine sales are up 66%. Beer, 42%. Cannabis use is at an all-time record high. Porn traffic consumption is up 6.4%. television streaming is higher now than it's ever been in its history. Gaming platforms are breaking the internet because of the bandwidth requirements, and people are exercising less, they're eating more crap food. And then everybody thinks it's funny to talk about the COVID-15, the 15 pounds that they're accumulating when they're in isolation, which is the most ridiculous thing. I mean, it fascinates me and it frustrates me, because this is our crisis. This is the crisis of our lifetime. I mean, my grandfather went to freaking war. I mean, he was 20 years old, climbing upon a plane and flying into the dark through the Pacific Theater, where half his friends never made it back because they were killed at war. And our great battle cry is to go sit on our couch.
Yeah.
That's our great responsibility, is to do nothing. And so, Jim Rohn always would say that time either promotes you or exposes you, and a crisis just accelerates that. So I think that the weak are going to get washed out, and the forces are going to go to the strong. So that's number two, is by my fascination. The last is that I am more excited now than I've been in a really long time, Gary, authentically. I mean, that small percentage that will thrive are going to be those that skate to where the puck is going, not where the puck has been, because the economy and world and culture and society as we knew it is over. It is a new norm. We're not going back to normal. We're going into a whole new norm. There was a pre-9/11 world, and then there was a post-9/11 world. There will be a pre-COVID-19 world, and there will be a post-COVID-19 world, and they will look very differently, and it will expose a tremendous number of new opportunities that didn't exist a few months ago. Charles Darwin is famous for the quote, survival of the fittest, but he said it is not the strongest of the species that survives, and it's not the most intelligent of the species that survives. It's the most adaptable to change that survives and will thrive, and that's true of this upcoming economy. I mean, I don't know about Canada, but I think you guys kind of have coincided along with this, but in the history of the United States, we've endured 47 recessions or depressions in our short history, and we will survive through this, and most certainly some will thrive for it and thrive through it, and it will be those that are planned and prepared. And I believe that this can be the time of greatest opportunity. You can look back 10 years from now and see that this period right here, coming out of Q1, going into Q2 and Q3 of 2020, was the most significant and opportune time of your life. You're living through history. Right now, history is being made. We will talk about this period of time for generations to come. And if I were to put it into Winston Churchillian terms, I would say that this has the opportunity to be your finest hour, but you have to choose to step into it. You have to choose to do the work. Mike Tyson has a famous quote that says, everybody's tough until they get punched in the mouth.
Right.
Well, everybody has gotten punched in the mouth. And I'm talking everybody. The reality of everybody's existence has just got punched in the mouth. The game board has been shaken. Whoever owned the Monopoly board coming out of the first quarter of 2020 no longer owns those properties, and it is a new land grab. I mean, the frontier is wide open. In every recession or depression, some rise and create absolute fortunes. Some of the greatest companies that exist today were born out of recessions and depressions. So the third thing I'm feeling, Gary, is I'm feeling excited, is what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Amazing explanation of some of those emotions. It's, we often talk about mindset and the mindset that we have to have and to, just navigate and sort of accelerate. And, can you just kind of like talk about mindset and how you think people should be viewing, this period to position themselves and navigate through it? I know, Darren, you talk often about, sliding and people who have maybe fallen off and got out of the habits that, that they know that, when they practice them, always help them excel. And those excuses are typically, because of the, they say if you're dead, you're in your head, you're dead, right? Can you talk about mindset and how we can navigate through this period?
The people around you are always watching you. I mean, we're a social tribe species. We learn by observational learning, by mimicking those around us, particularly those that are in positions of authority. But now more than ever, right? When people are scared, they look to those that are supposed to be in positions of authority. And right now, the people around all of those that are on this webinar for sure, those people are watching you, and they're watching how you feel. They watch how you are thinking and how you're acting and behaving. And everybody in your industry right now, in your company, in your community, and in your family is experiencing the same thing. They're experiencing uncertainty, they're experiencing fear, they're experiencing worry, and for the most part, a lot of them are experiencing paralysis as a result of that. And so they're watching you. And right now, they're counting on you. And now's the time to step up and step out in front, to be that calm center and to inspire hope. You need to be that beacon of light that illuminates the path forward. Right now there's a lot of darkness in people's minds and consciousness and expectations about the future. And you've got to be that light that illuminates the path forward. So there's a couple of things, Gary, in particular about mindset. Number one is that you have to protect and feed your mind now more than ever, right? I mean, the one organ most responsible for your physical health, the one organ most responsible for your physical health is not your heart. It's not your nervous system, it's your brain. And if your brain is weakened by stress and depression and hopelessness and helplessness, it will have consequences on your immune system and make you more susceptible to this thing that everybody's afraid of physically. Right. So I know that people think that it's okay to keep up on the COVID-19 news as if they're going to learn something new, but it is not okay. Right. 99.9999% of the crap that you're ingesting, you can't do anything about. You've gotten your instructions. Isolate your ass. That's it. Wash your damn hands. Don't touch your face. That's all you got to do, right? I mean, right. You don't need to know any more information than that. You don't need to be up on what latest famous person's just contracted or the latest death count or Trump's latest briefing musings. You don't need any of that. I mean, I catch my news from my phone on Flipboard sitting on the toilet. It's probably TMI, but I figure if I'm going to ingest crap, I might as well be getting rid of it at the same time. Right. It takes 2 to 3 minutes to learn anything that I need to know of what's happening in the world, because you can't do anything about most everything it is that you're consuming, but it does injure you. So if you think that it doesn't have an effect, I'm telling you it does. If you don't think that it makes you fearful, I'm telling you it does. If you don't think that it constrains your expectations about the future, I'm telling you that it does, and it affects your biology, even if you don't think so. So number one is you got to stop consuming the crap that you can't control. Then you need to feed it what it needs, the nutrition that it needs to run on. And so that is finding voices that you can trust. In times of crisis, leaders rise. In times of weakness, people gravitate towards strength. That's why, you will see money go back to big cap companies and things that they can rely on, the institutions of our society. Right. And this is the reason why, Gary, I just want to say again, I am just super proud of what it is that you're doing for your network, for your industry, stepping into this void and being a resource to help people see the light through the darkness. And that's what people need. People need people like you to step into that, step ahead and show the way forward. So you protect and feed. Like, this organ is sacred, and you have to defend it vigorously at every turn. My mentor Jim Rohn would say, you have to stand guard at the doorway of your mind. Right. Protect it from anything that could possibly repress it and debilitate it, and feed it what it needs in order to help lead the charge forward for those people who are counting on you.
Yeah, well, thank you again for that. I mean, it's interesting because we've been doing a lot of educational pieces and a lot of webinars, and we've been saying to all of our agents and owners, more important than ever before, now is the time to serve, not the time to sell. Anyone who is opportunistic, during this timing, or is marketing COVID-19 as a strategy to generate business, those kind of behaviors are going to be remembered for a very, very, very long time. And we've been sharing as much as our much as we can of our resources. And, one thing that I've been talking about to our network is look at this time as a real gift. I mean, you have, I'm getting more done at home because I'm less distracted than I ever have before. I am just powering through content and curriculum. And so much of it is on personal development and a reflection of, the habits that I perform day in, day out. And, we've talked about that a lot in the past, Darren, but, it's so much about personal development. Before we sort of get into where we would start and some suggestions for all of our viewers today, I'd like to get your opinion on how you think the COVID-19 is going to change the world as we see it, the world going forward. How is it going to change how we communicate, how we operate our businesses? What new habits are we developing right now? Because they're all changing sitting at home, as you said. And for many of us, for the worse, we're using this as an excuse to just, batten down the hatches and ride this thing out, which is the exact opposite of what we should be doing. So what do you see as the biggest changes once we are through this, and what are the steps that we should do to prepare for them so that we don't find ourselves sliding further down that slippery slope?
So I don't know whether I mentioned this or not, but adversity creates great clarity, right? Through crisis, things get a lot simplified. And one thing for us at Darren Hardy LLC is this crisis has clarified things. It's who we are and as I mentioned to you, maybe previously, we see ourselves as in the healthcare business. And while there are many other professionals that are out there that are very adept and equipped to help you with your physical health, we're here to help people with their mental health. And then coming out of this crisis to help them with their financial health, because undoubtedly we will have to hustle to find our way what's coming economically. Crisis, I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times by now, but the Chinese characters for crisis is danger and opportunity. Right. And so with crisis comes both of those. And so our job here is to help navigate and mitigate through the danger, and then find the way to take most advantage of the opportunities that will be before us, because they will be massive opportunities as we go forward. So I've gotten a lot of 911 calls from people like you and other CEO and top business leaders who are looking for solutions about what to do. And so what I'm doing is what are the important questions leaders right now need to be asking themselves in order to mitigate and move around the dangers and plan and prepare for the big comeback that's coming out of this crisis, and to breakthrough, right? The breakthrough after the outbreak. Right. And so I'm holding next week that's walking every business leader through those 10 questions so they can find solutions. But on the macro level, to answer your question, there's 5 trends that I see sort of to reveal themselves that I think everybody watching right now should start thinking about very specifically about how it translates to what and how they start planning their way forward. So let me just kind of walk through those 5 macros. Please. Number 1 is now is going to be the time for new ideas, new models, new products, new solutions. It will never be easier, and it'll never be more readily received than coming out of turbulent times. Because during turbulent times, that's when people are looking for something new. They're looking for something novel. In fact, if it's an old solution, it's not as relevant. Like a new solution is actually more relevant right. coming out of crisis than old ones are. They're more valued. They feel more current. So when I first got into real estate, I was brand new to real estate coming into the early 1990s through the 1990s recession. And so I was the first in order to do short sales, and made relationships with banks to handle their short sales. And as a result of it, I had a unique selling proposition that none of my veteran experienced competitors did. And it gave me prominence, and it gave me a massive advantage in the marketplace. So I think, what are those new models? What are those new needs that exist for your market that didn't exist 30 to 60 days ago? Right. And how can you be a first mover on addressing those needs for this new reality? The second thing I see is that there's going to be exponential growth opportunities. We're always looking in a market for 2 to 3x type improvements, but you got to bring your past and it acts as a constraint in order to kind of find those multipliers. Now you got to look only for 10 and 100x type exponential growth opportunities. And they're now available now more than ever before, because you only can find 10 and 100x growth opportunities in blue oceans. Well, all of a sudden, I told you the monopoly board got shaken, and it's a new open territory now. And so all the open territory is 10 and 100x growth opportunities. If you stop doing what it was that you were doing before and start looking, get out of the bloody waters that you were fighting in before, and start looking for those new blue oceans. Everything's been accelerated. I mentioned to you before that there's a lot, people are talking about all the restaurants that are going to go out of business. Look, the reason why the restaurants are going to go out of business is because they were hanging on by a thread before. I mean, those that only had 16 days worth of cash in the bank, and they were struggling with hiring the right people, and their food was half-assed and mediocre, and their place was a little bit dirty. They're going to get wiped out, gone. But I guarantee you, the strong ones, the people who are beloved in the community, they're going to come back stronger than ever. I would say 30% of all restaurants all over the globe are going to be wiped out. Yeah. That's a minimum. Right. And then people are going to go back to restaurants, trust me, and they're going to go back in force. And the 70% that remains are going to suck up the rest of the market that no longer exists because of the competition. And I guarantee you, a lot of people are going to think a lot harder about getting into the restaurant business going forward. That only strengthens the opportunity for those that were strong before. So I just think the strong are going to thrive in this and it's going to wipe out supply. So I would ask people to ask themselves the question, where is the 10 and 100x blue ocean opportunities that are either in your lane or adjacent to your lane, or are in a pivot to using your existing assets? Third macro trend is this whole idea of remote, virtual, and digital is a new reality. There are a lot of people resistant, the baby boomers and the builder generations, for doing things digital, but that has all been abolished. They've had to, like, want to do, we don't do what we should do, we only do what we have to do. Well, a lot of people have had to figure this out, and in doing so, they were like, oh my gosh, it's great. I didn't have to get in a car, I didn't have to fight the commute, I didn't have to go and sit in the waiting room. I could just get this done virtually and then go about my life. So that there will be a whole new acceptance to that, and it will be a whole new consumer habit training around this. So like one of our elite members that you're a part of, Gary, runs a company called Fetch MD, and they put doctors in cars and send them to your home. And that's their business model, is basically bringing the doctor to you. They had a telemedicine model, but it was slow to adopt because a lot of their patients, they wanted to still see their doctor. They weren't comfortable with just seeing their doctor on camera and being prescribed and diagnosed and so forth. So that model was really slow. And the regulations around that were really slow, because if there is something that is an old dog, it is all the regulators and all the established status quo of the medical industry and the legislators and so forth. Well, with this whole new reality, they had to switch to that right away. And so our friend doubled down on his telemedicine model, and now went from only being able to service an area that you could drive doctors to, is now servicing the entire state of Texas, and is now starting to scale across the nation. Because the adoption, the behavior changed in the consumer marketplace and in the regulatory marketplace. Starbucks is going to come out of this stronger than ever. And here's the reason why. They had 30% of their customers doing their digital transactions, getting a loyalty card, putting money on it, and then using the card at the cash register. That's a huge part of their business, is this digital loyalty. In fact, in 2019, they did $1.6 billion in prepaid deposits on loyalty cards. 2018, they had 156 million in breakage income left on those cards, which means people put money on the cards and they never used them. Right. That's free money. They didn't even have to serve coffee for the money. It was literally like $156 million charity donation. The year before it was 104. The year before that was 60 million. So if they can get the other 70, holy shit, how much is that worth to them? So, and they're trying out this drive-through only, so they don't even have to go through the expensive design and real estate. And so they could just put these kiosks and drive-through. People didn't want to accept that before, but now it's a whole different consumer behavior. So there's a whole different opportunity. People who were not regular Amazon users started using it now that they couldn't go to the stores. They're not turning back, right? I have a guy that has helped gym owners turn their business model into virtual gyms, right? And he went from having no business to doing $100,000 in a weekend. So, I mean, we're talking everything. Services that were normally provided in person, like counseling or cooking classes, are all going virtual. And think about the cost and efficiencies and scaling capabilities that provides. So I would ask everybody to ask themselves, what changes in consumer behavior in your industry have shifted? And how can you respond? How can you take advantage? Even if it's just for efficiency or scale sakes, there's huge opportunities in that adoption process that has just been accelerated by 100 years. Like maybe that's too far. 50 years, we have accelerated our adoption of technology, virtual, distributed workforces, remote, all that has been advanced by 50 years. So number 4, the other aspect is convenience. See, Netflix beat Blockbuster not because they had better movies. Convenience. They shipped them to you in the mail. You didn't have to get in your damn car, go down there and, haggle with the 18-year-old that was working the cash register, get back in your car and then pay all the late fees. So they just made it more convenient. That's all they did. Digital photography, we know that Kodak is the one who invented it. They had all the patents on it, and they lost out on it because they didn't want to kill their 90% margin film factory business. And they couldn't see how people would prefer it because at the time, film resolution was 10 to 30 million pixel resolution. And digital at the time was like the quality of VGA. It was less quality. What they didn't anticipate, and this is something Steve Jobs taught us, convenience trumps quality.
Right.
People preferred the convenience of digital photography even over the quality. And Jobs proved that with the Apple iPod, in fact, that the iPod's music quality was not as good as a CD. But people preferred having 1,000 of them in their pocket than they did the quality of the CD. It was good enough. So convenience is a massive opportunity and advantage. So we saw, Amazon destroy Sears, JCPenney's, Macy's, soon Best Buy. Things like Instacart, DoorDash, they can't hire people fast enough, and so forth. So I would ask people to ask themselves, what are the innovations in convenience within how you do business or how you deliver business that you should be taking first mover advantage on? And then the last one of my favorites, because impact is our first core value here at Darren Hardy LLC, is now's the time you can make a bigger contribution in people's lives than ever before. Before, you might have been selling vitamins, right? Which is good for people. And, and over time, you're going to see the benefit of our business model versus others, being part of our network versus others. But right now, you could be a painkiller. People got some serious, they're bleeding. Right. They got pain, and you can solve it. It's not about the cost benefits, this feature versus that feature right now. Right now, you could be providing life-saving solutions. So I would ask you to ask yourselves, where can you help the most? Selling painkillers instead of only selling vitamins. And then, like Gary, this event is part of you doing that. It's part of you doing that. I mean, you could go out all day and be like, the DLC network is better than that other network because of this reason and that reason. And you're going to love us and our people. And that's vitamins, and it's good. Vitamins are good for you. But it's like, okay, I'm all right. I'm comfortable. I'm good. I mean, the cost of change is too great. Right now, you're providing people painkillers. They got serious problems. You're providing serious answers. You could be a knight in shining armor now you couldn't have 60 days ago. So that's what I mean. Inside everybody's individual business, there is that reality where before you were painting the picture of features and benefits, now people have serious problems and you could be their white knight.
Wow, incredible answers. So, Darren, I want to translate some of that for our brokers and listeners on this call. So, number one, when Darren talks about the 10x or 100x of people now adopting new technologies, Darren, in Canada, we had a lot of our Canadian institutions, big 6 Canadian charter banks, and so many of them were slow to adopt simple things like e-signature, and they were working on them for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Well, miraculously, they can all take them now in the last 14 days. They figured it out in 14 days because of the need for speed. The second thing, how we do business around appraisals and around the rules in each province around know your customer and doing the complete mortgage transaction in a 360 loop has accelerated. And now we're doing them, the vast majority of them, virtually without seeing the customer. And there were so many brokers that were slow to adopt that. And the other thing is that if you're on this call right now and if you are listening to Darren, one thing that we have is we have time right now. We have more time than we have had. And as I said earlier, we're all finding more production because we're at home distracted. Use this time to engage yourself in some of those technologies. I'm going to make this, a little bit focused on our business, but we had a major outage in the Canadian mortgage space where you couldn't send deals to a lender, a few weeks ago for 5 days. And there was 2 systems and we owned one of the solutions. Well, there's a lot of people in the Canadian mortgage space that weren't signed up to the secondary solution called Velocity, which is, one that we're involved with, and they only had a single solution. Now's the time to onboard, get to know that, never, put yourself and make yourself exposed again, like we, went through where you had downtime, because those that had that solution didn't have any downtime. And it's the same with social media. If you're on this call right now and you've said, oh, I'm too old to, learn something new, and you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And if you aren't using social media and if you aren't engaging on that simple technology, I promise you, as I've said before, you're going to be chasing the bus rather than driving the bus. And now we have time, and make sure that you use this time to focus on those areas that maybe you haven't got to know well, that you're going to find that when you, invest the time, it's going to pay massive dividends. So thank you, Darren. And you're right. That is the trigger for so many of us to say, it's about time that, I make certain that I can never be exposed again, right? Either financially, either how I engage with people, either the use of technology. So the other thing that I'll just, and it's going to dovetail into our next question. The other thing that I'll just quickly mention, when we talk about, and Darren, I would love your feedback, when we talk about leaders and influence, every single one of us are leaders, whether we're the leader in our family, the leader to our children, the leader in our household, the leader in our business, whether we're the leader on the sports team. Leader has, very, 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 many definitions. So if we look at, now, Derek, I think what will really resonate with our audience is, in your opinion, what does a great leader look like? And what are the steps the great leaders are taking during a time like this?
So a leader is a calming force, a stabilizing force. Like children, the one thing they need from their parents more than anything is to feel safe. And the people around you that you're responsible for leading need to feel safe. And if you're hairy-carry and you're stressed out and you're defaulting back to your bad habits, that is going to be very, very, very disconcerting and disturbing to the people around you. I was listening to the biographer of the book, the Churchill autobiography or Churchill biography. He was the writer being interviewed, and he said, and the interviewer asked, "How do you think Churchill would handle this crisis?" Because Churchill obviously handled one of the greatest crises of our human existence, leading Britain through World War II and the Blitzkrieg on London and all the rest of it. And he said Churchill would always do 3 things when he would address the nation during a crisis. And I think all of us need to kind of consider this. So I'm going to pass these forward to you, because this is the way we all need to address our families, our teams, our clients. And it's these 3 things. Number 1 is he would always give a very sober assessment of the reality. He would address the brutal facts. Here's what we know. Here's what we're happening. We're in the depths of a crisis. The hardship that our country will face will be the greatest of our lifetime. You don't, as a leader, you don't want to deny the truth. You want to see it. You want everybody else to know that you see it, that you know it, and that as a result of knowing it, that you're going to be able to properly deal with it. Jim Collins in Good Great talked about the Stockdale paradox, the World War II captain that was in prison for 8 years. And the paradox is that when asked who are the people that didn't make it out of the camps, and he said it was the optimist. Why did the optimist die? Because they always thought that, tomorrow, by Christmas, by Easter, by Thanksgiving, we're going to get out. He says the first thing you have to do is you have to accept the brutal reality. You have to deal with the brutal facts. And then the second thing he said is that you never lose hope in the happy ending. But you as a leader, you don't motivate through a crisis. You lead through a crisis. So that's number one, is address the brutal facts. Okay, yes, this is the reality of the situation. Number two is to start painting the picture of what are the logical reasons to have hope. We're mobilizing the medical community. We're throwing all the resources, all our available talent, all the amazing men and women as a part of the medical industry on the front lines. We're double downing on manufacturing. Whatever is our logical reasons to have a sense of hope. How you as a leader are stepping into the crisis to start to address it. Even in darkness, you want to start pointing the eyes of those that follow you towards the light. Now, even if the light is at the end of the hallway, under the crack of the door, still point the eyes in the darkness to that light. So number two is the logical reasons to have hope. And number three is that rally cry that Winston Churchill was famous for. And that is rally crying around the sense of purpose that he's calling upon and attaching it to people's identity, that these are the times when we were born for. We are Britons. We are strong. We will endure. We will survive. And he would embolden his populace. And at the end of some of the most terrifying speeches that I can't imagine a leader would have to make, people would jump from their couches or their chairs and pump their fist, emboldened once again. And that was the brilliance of Churchill. But you can't do it by going to a rally cry first. You have to address the brutal facts. Here's the reality as we know it. Here are the logical reasons why you can have hope. And here's what we need to do as a team, as a company, as an enterprise, as a group of people bound together for this mission, and leave them with a sense of a reinvigorated sense of purpose and personal identity to do your all, even through hardship. So we're all, Gary, way more capable as leaders than we allow ourselves to be. And it just takes a leader to step forward in order to see how even us who feel very ordinary can be extraordinary. And that's the job of the leader. That's why we need leaders, is that to help all of us who feel ordinary feel our extraordinary capability is possible. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what we need to do. And whether that is in your industry or in your company or in your peer group or in your family at home, that's what we all need to do.
Thank you for that. One of the things that I've been saying, and I've been pushing it, and anyone in our network probably knows this already, but there is nothing more important than just picking up the phone, and every person that you've ever, done business with or tried to do business with, or every past referral source or anyone who helped you, start from the oldest to the newest that you haven't spoken to, and just reach out and check in and, hey, how are you doing? And what's going on? And how are you managing? And we've been creating a lot of great resources. Have you seen those? Can I share those with you right now? And that's a really good time, Darren, to just identify what you just said. Like, this is a difficult time. I get it. I'm feeling it myself in my own family. might be an opportunity, for you to, set up a buffer if you need us for anything. If you have questions, if you want links for the federal programs, if you want links for the mortgage deferral program, that's what I'm here for. And it's not a call to generate business, although, some of it will come because people do need your help. But it's just a call to check in. And I honestly believe that when you do this and you do this regularly, down the road, when this is all behind us, they're going to remember, oh my goodness, my mortgage professional called me and just checked in and was there to guide me and actually gave a shit. And I think that's so powerful. And, and so often we forgot to do those simple things, and they are so easy, but they are the exact epitome of a leader and what you were just expressing there. So thank you for that, Darren. So if we're at home now, we're settling in now. It seems to be in the last month, people are starting to understand this is our new reality. We don't know how long this is going to last for. It could be a few more weeks. It could be a few more months. Who knows? But for anyone in business today, we're sitting at home. Can you give us some steps that you believe we should be taking to make ourselves the most productive going forward? Where should we start there?
You really nailed it in your last comment, Gary.
Okay, good.
That's what it is. There might not be people that are buying houses, selling houses, or asking for mortgages at this moment. But that does not mean that this isn't the time of greatest opportunity and where you should be guarding every minute of the day and being as productive as possible, doing what it is that you just said. And that is what I challenge my team to do. Proactively reach out to all the relationships that you have through business. Check in, make an emotional deposit. Let them know that our organization cares about them, reaffirm their connection to our community, offer any support that you can, even if it is only emotional support. And don't just go out there saying, can I help you? What can I help you with? Do what you just said. Offer specific ideas of things that you have as resources that can be helpful, that you were thinking about them and thought this might be useful for their particular situation. Like, don't make them think about how you can help them. Come to them with thoughts or ideas that would be useful to them. Become their most trusted and valued resource, particularly now. Now is the time when they're looking for answers. They have problems, they have fears, they have worries. I would say, to put it simply, measure the success of your day by the number of emotional deposits you make into other people's lives. Like, keep track of it. Keep a tick mark on your notepad. How many people have you made an emotional deposit into today as a resource, as their trusted advisor? And again, it might only be to remind and demonstrate to people that you care. And as you mentioned, the need for your services will naturally arise out of the conversation, or later when the pandemonium subsides, they will remember those conversations that they had with you. And it's like people remember who shows up when they're hurting, right? People remembers the people who show up to the funeral more than they remember who showed up to the wedding.
Right.
Like that's when being a human being matters, when demonstrating that you care matters the most. And even if, like, some people are like, well, my business is shut down, or I don't have a job, I've been furloughed or laid off, then your new job is to retool yourself. Your new job is growth. So set a work schedule that you operate by to go educate yourself on your next move. Plan and prepare your comeback coming out of this crisis. That's your job now. Treat it like one. And to hearken Churchill again, Churchill would say, never waste a good crisis. This is such an opportune time to be a leader, to be a solution provider, to be a contributor in people's lives, to deepen the emotional connection you have with relationships that matter, not just personally, but professionally, that matter. I mean, that's the reason why I'm doing this with you, Gary. You're a valued relationship, and when you ask in times like this, I know that my saying yes in this time is going to matter more now than it would have otherwise. And this is worth it for me to make that investment, to make that contribution, to be there when people need you the most. So I would just say, measure your day by the number of emotional deposits you're making in other people's lives as their advocate.
Yeah. And, again, guys, that, something that I think we've been really good at our team, but that's exactly it. And it's not only your past customers, it's your BDMs that have showed up, and help you, and answer questions and emails, at 8 or 9 at night. It's your underwriters, it's your referral sources, it's your lenders. I mean, we've talked about it before, Dare. So many people, managers often, spend their day trying to correct people and point them in the right direction and say, well, you did it this way, but you could do it this way. And what leaders do and champions do is they actually walk around every day and find people doing something right. And they're acknowledging them and tapping them on the shoulder and saying, oh my goodness, that was incredible. Right. And we get in the habit of trying to be constructive and helping people. And it's, actually really detracts from those relationships. So now's a good time. And it doesn't matter, who it is, but reach out, care, grab them by the heart and be sincere. I mean, obviously you're making phone calls and you're disingenuous. You heard me say it before. There's no value. It actually works against you. But if you really, really care, and it takes a minute or maybe it takes 15 or 20 minutes on that call, it is such a good investment, for those relationships long-term. Darren, we talk about, we got something from Brad Peterson in our group a few weeks ago, and I love the analogy. And he talked about being a champion race car driver on an oval circuit. And he said, it is much more difficult to pass in a corner. You have to be much more skilled. But those that take an opportunity, when you come into a corner as a race car driver, you brake hard. Whoa, just like we're braking hard right now in business. A million people in Canada, have claimed unemployment insurance in the last month. So we brake hard, but now's the time as we go through that corner to pass, and it takes more skills. But when you come out of this corner is when you're going to actually build champions and put yourself in the winning position. So if we talk about what champions do in times of crisis, in your experience, and you've covered some of it already. So if you want to move on, we can. But what do you think, champions are doing differently than, the average in a time like this?
This is why I'm most excited about this time, Gary. These are the times when there's such a great opportunity. Warren Buffett said it best when he said, when people are greedy, be fearful. And when people are fearful, be greedy, which means that right now people are fearful. Now is the time to strike. Now is the time of great opportunity. Opportunities are born now that weren't available before and won't be available later. This is a window of time. Take advantage. Katie bar the door. So I'll give you just some classic examples of this. Back coming out of the Depression in the 1920s, Post cereal maker was the category leader by far. And then during the Depression, they scaled their advertising way back, which would seem like a logical thing to do when you're going through the middle of a depression. Well, their rival, Kellogg, was coming out with a new cereal called Rice Krispies. I don't know if you remember that, but Snap, Crackle, Pop, gnome-like creatures. And they doubled down on advertising. Well, they grew 30% during the Depression, and they came out as the category leader, and they have never been knocked off since.
Wow.
They would not have been able to do that if Post hadn't retreated in a depression situation. During the 1970s, during the oil embargo by OPEC and the energy crisis, all of a sudden, America had all these giant cars, but fuel efficiency became the thing. Well, VW, Volkswagen, was perfectly positioned, but they got scared and they retreated and retracted a lot of their marketing and advertising. And that is when Toyota doubled down on their advertising spend and sped right past VW to become the #1 import car maker coming in the United States by 1976, only a year after the recession had ended. During the 1990s recession, McDonald's got scared. They cut way back on their advertising spend. And that is when Pizza Hut and Taco Bell doubled down on their spend. So Pizza Hut went up 61%, Taco Bell went up 40%, McDonald's went down 28%. And then in the last 2008, 2009 recession, when a lot of people got scared and pulled back on their marketing and advertising, that's when Amazon doubled down on their Kindle e-reader. And so cash-strapped consumers, again, seeing the new trend, so they can buy books less expensive, and it was more convenient to carry around, so they doubled down on that. Well, coming out of 2007, their 12-month trailing revenue was $19 billion. 2019, it was $281 billion. but it was coming out and going and doubling down hard during the recession that really gave them that growth trajectory coming out of it. So I would say act boldly. What do champions do? They freaking act boldly, particularly when people are fearful. When people are retreating, that's when they're running towards the firestorm. So another great example, I just love Elon Musk, because he's such a ballsy guy, man. I mean, the real Iron Man. So in September 2016, South Australia was experiencing an apocalyptic storm. I mean, they had 80,000 lightning strikes and at least two tornadoes. And so it knocked out their energy grid, and they put 1.7 million people into darkness. And so the Australian Prime Minister, what did he do? Well, he started to blame the state's current turn towards renewable energy, right? And so then a fierce debate broke out, and that is when Elon Musk saw an opportunity to be bold, to be a white knight and make an audacious bet. So he said loudly on Twitter that he would deliver 100 megawatts of storage in 100 days, or it would be free. In other words, he would build the biggest battery farm the history's ever seen up to that point in 100 days, or it'd be free. If an Australian billionaire came out and said, "Are you serious?" And he says, 100 days, 100 megawatts, or it's free. Can I be more clear? And so the Australian government put together a $550 million energy plan. Elon Musk won the bid for it, and he delivered the 100 largest battery in the history of the world with 40 days to spare.
Wow.
And he was asked, he says, if you had lost the bet, what would it have cost you? He said, it would have cost me $50 million. He says, but I knew we could do it. It wasn't a risk. I knew we already had the tech. I knew we already had the facilities, but he had to make his claim audacious. He had to be bold. He had to see an opportunity to step in and be a white knight. And so I'm just going to say to all of your network out there, there are those opportunities for you to make an audacious, bold move. And like I said, 2 to 3x in growth, you can't even look at those opportunities. It's got to be 10 to 100x. That's where the audacious blue ocean opportunities are. And that's what the champion drivers look for, are those bold moves that are going to be the great separators between the once were versus those that will become.
Let me share a story from our perspective as well, and thanks for that, Darren. In 2008, we were number 4 in market share, our group, and in 2008, 2009, our world changed radically. We went through the global credit crisis, and I remember the number. We lost 17 lenders in our space, between the U.S. lenders, the Canadian lenders, inside of a space of 2 weeks, and where everyone typically was just batting down the hatches and trying to ride out the storm. Chris and I looked at each other and we said, there's never been another opportunity, a better opportunity than this. And we increased our advertising spend, and, very similar, we put out a bunch of resources and we spoke to a lot of people. And in the next 18 months during that period, we went from number 4 in market share to number 1 in market share. And I truly believe that it's no different right now. There's people on this call that are doing a really, really great job, but, they have higher aspirations and they want to do more in their community or their city or their province, or, there's more there that's available to them. And I think, now is, as you said, that time to double down. And a lot of that just begins by, some self-reflection, looking at, your messaging, looking at, what you're doing in your community, looking at your community involvement and how solid it is, and looking at those valuable resources and making sure that you nurture and foster those relationships. And how you do that, I think that one step that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary is, I think you are constantly, and this leads to our next question, Darren, so there's a method behind my madness, but you are constantly working on self-development. It's like, and some have heard me say it before, it's like champions, don't, start doing personal development and do it once. It's not like a warm bath where, you come out and you cool down very quickly. It's a lifelong pursuit of personal development. It's constantly learning. And, it's always the top performers who are at all of the events, who are constantly engaged on, Zoom calls like this. So what I'd like you to do, you know, an NHL team plays, they lose, they study game tape. A golfer plays 18 rounds, a pro golfer, you know, has got an incredible coach, and then he goes to the range for 2 hours and, you know, after the round and 2 hours before the round the next morning. This is a really important point, Darren, and this is something that I really want to, you know, use this as a gift to maybe ignite some people. Can you speak to personal development? There's so much information out there. Where do they start? You know, how, you know, like what's involved with that? Because there's a lot of people that say, oh yeah, I know that, I've seen that, I've heard that, I've seen them speak, you know, and to them, they actually, you know, are involved in personal development. To a guy like you or a guy like me, probably, it's not personal development at all, right? They're just reading something that's inspiring. How do you take it one step further? So that's my spark, and I'm feeding my mind from this day going forward so that I can truly become a champion through this.
Yeah, the problem that most people are faced with is not consuming information. It's not consuming positive ideas or the fluffy motivational mumbo jumbo crap that you see on social media, thinking that they're doing personal development. In actuality, I think people need to learn less, and they need to study more. They need to work on essential skills, and that requires study, not just deluging yourself with 1,000 different voices saying inane, nonsensical stuff that you don't do anything with anyway. So right now more than ever, like if you're thinking like, what's the essential skill that I need right now? Like it's called self-mastery, and learning how to self-manage, learning how to keep yourself productive, learning how to lead a team of people productively, learning how to lead a family productively. So that's the reason why, knowing that now more than ever, people really need essential skills. And this essential skill that they need now more than ever is personal productivity. And so we've taken our insane productivity and made it available for free for 30 days so that people can experience it. They can get a result. They can see the evidence of a result before they even have to decide whether they want to continue with the installment plan and own the rest of the program. So you can find it at darrenhardy.com/gift, darrenhardy.com/gift, and it'll give you free access into our training vault so that you can start to experience that program. But it requires you taking a single-minded approach to focus on something. I mean, we're trafficking with and flittering about with all sorts of shit, scrolling through Instagram and Facebook and thinking that we're learning. You're not learning. Nothing's sticking. Nothing's changing your behavior. Nothing is changing your action. Nothing is moving your life forward. So I would say we need to learn less and we need to study more. Another thing, we've also taken all the books that I've produced and made them free. So you can get the Compound Effect for free. You can get the Entrepreneur Roller Coaster book for free. I mean, we're trying to make these resources available to people easily in a time when they need them the most. This is at thecompoundeffect.com, and this one's at rollercoasterbook.com. And it's free, okay? So this isn't a freaking commercial. Like, how can you give a commercial for something that's freaking free, right? So you want to approach personal development this way. There's two things that you want to be doing simultaneously. One is that you want to do that study to work on essential skills. And a skill requires that you learn something, you try it, you now see that you don't know it, you go back and learn it again, you try it, you iterate, you improve, you grow, you practice, and you evolve yourself to mastery. That's study, right? That's training. Like, there's a big difference between education and training. If you want clarity, stark clarity, imagine your 16-year-old daughter comes in and says, I'm taking a sex education class. You're like, that's great, honey. You should do that. But imagine if she walked in the room and says, I'm taking a sex training class. See, that's a whole different level of engagement. And that's what we need with essential skills. We need training. We don't need education. We're overwhelmed with freaking education. We need training that's going to build essential skills, change habits over time. Okay. That's one thing you need to be doing is pick something, one thing, like take all the crap, pick one, focus on one, decide on one. I don't give a crap what it is. I think you should do insane productivity, but that's me and I'm biased. And I'm giving it to you for free.
And we've done it, by the way, guys. Some of us have done it. It is incredible. I mean, I get emails all the time from people that have said, and it's free right now, you should be taking advantage of this.
Second thing is you need to constantly be nurturing your mind. No matter how positive you are, how optimistic you are, you're trafficking amongst human beings, and they're going to put dirty water in your cup, so to speak, right? The media that's out there, the conversation, just all the things that are bombarding you, it's going to put dirty water into your cup. You've got to have a source that flushes that on a regular basis. That's why I created Darren Daily, which is every morning, just one idea or a tip to ignite your mind to start looking for the light in the darkness, looking for the positive expectations throughout your day. You're not studying it. You're not taking it out to the practice range and then, hitting 1,000 balls with what it is that you learned at Darren Daily. It's just something to refresh your mind, kickstart your day, to look for out in the abundance of many things, the one thought or idea that can have a positive influence on your day that day. So there's study, and then there is nurturing, which is just continuing to flush your mind. You need both, and I would suggest that you try to figure out a trusted voice, somebody that you have esteem for. And even when I was running a television network or running Success Magazine, all the thought leaders were all buddies and friends of mine. They all sent me their shit because they wanted it presented on our television network or in their magazine. I had to vet and read and prepare for interviews, so I had to go through it all. But I always just went back to like one or two people when I was actually wanting to nurture my mind, or I was wanting to refine my skills, because they were the credible, grounded, trusted voices that I relied upon. So I would suggest that you do that too. The paradox of choice, the things that cause our mind to freeze and not make any progress is when we are overwhelmed with complexity. And so you've got to proactively move away from complexity and move away from the overwhelm by making very conscious selections on what it is that you are going to use as a constant flow of nurturing your mind, and who you're going to listen to go double down on those essential skills. So that would be my advice in that category.
Awesome. Really appreciate that. Such great feedback. We're going to wrap down here in just a few minutes. Darren, how are you on time? You got a few more minutes?
Sure.
Awesome. Great. So I'm going to just quickly mention, and thanks, Darren, for explaining it actually way better than I could have. But if you're on this call right now and you want an inspirational, very thought-provoking, nourishing piece, that you can put into your mind every single day, and it's free and it's 5 days a week, please sign up for darrendaily.com. A lot of us are on it already, and I've heard such great feedback, and many of you signed up for this call. We're so excited because you've been listening to Darren 5 days a week for some time now. Those who haven't, I promise you, it's a real simple, easy start, and you'll absolutely love it. Darren, maybe the last thing that I'll sort of end with on here, and there's been different pieces that we've hit already, but you've coached and mentored and interviewed some of the most inspirational people in the world. You have interviewed and featured, as I said, titans, captains of industries. And, you surround yourself and you coach top performers all the time. Can you give us your, and I don't want to catch you off guard here, but your top 5 undisputable attributes of a top performer or a top leader? What are the top 5 attributes? Bar none, these guys have this, these girls have this.
Yeah. So, and I don't care whether you're Branson or Jobs or Welch or Buffett or what have you. This is what I was. Okay. Number 1 is that they are consummate learners. Number 1 is they are always looking for the edge. Steve Jobs is famous for walking around his office. There's got to be a better way. 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 And so he was constantly learning and growing and challenging himself mentally, emotionally, physically, and the rest of it. So number 1 is they're consummate learners. This has been my key to success. I mean, I got 1 semester of college, right? I came from a dysfunctional family. There's no reason for me to be in the position that I'm in. I've been in a dozen different industries, none of which I was ever educated for, trained for, should have been in by anybody else's standards. But because I am such a avid learner, it always gave me an advantage. I could always figure out my way because of that growth mindset, because of that commitment to constant and never-ending improvement. I was able to rise in an industry that I came into completely cold without any experience or training for. Second thing is they have an indomitable drive. If there's one thing I wish I could manufacture, if there was a pill I could dispense, I guess besides the COVID cure at this point, the pill that I would manufacture is desire. Like I wish more people were hungry and had that indomitable drive to be better, to do more, to contribute greater, and so forth. And these guys and gals had that indomitable drive. If you don't have that fire burning in your belly, like if right now, if you're not seeing how this can be a time of greatest opportunity, that you're fired up about making this your finest hour, that you want to be proud of how you showed up in this time of crisis, I don't know what to do to help you. I don't know if what we're talking about doesn't shake you by the shoulders, if it doesn't stir your freaking heart a little, I don't know what to do to help you. So they had indomitable drive and a hunger. The third thing that they had was focus. We only have so much time, energy, effort, resources. We don't have so much life force. And they got great at learning how to control their attention, control their time, and find their leverage so that they don't get 1-to-1 results. They got 1 to 50, 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000, 1 to 50,000 return on effort. And so that's why I'm so insistent on now's the time for people to double down on their insane productivity. Now's the time when those 100x opportunities are available to you, but you got to know how to do it. It's a skill. It's not something you learn. A baby doesn't know how to focus. Toddlers don't know how to focus. I don't know if you've noticed or not. It's a trained skill. And these guys and gals got really, really good at controlling their attention and finding their focus. The fourth thing is that they thrived on failure. You can call it failure. You can call it growth. You can call it improvement. You can call it iterations. I mean, Branson's got a portfolio of incredible failures. I mean, you all remember Virgin Cola and Virgin Brides and Virgin Cars and Virgin Cosmetics and Virgin Vodka and Virgin. I mean, there's a whole shelf of deaths that he's created. Elon Musk has been on the brink of bankruptcy. How many times now? I mean, how many rockets did he explode? Like NASA's not equipped to experience as many failures as Elon was willing to experience. I mean, he had some epic failure, but as a result of it, he's the guy that might get us to Mars. Bezos got $1 billion in failures that he's accumulated. Dumbass stuff, pets.com and Amazon auctions and Junglee and a bunch of stuff that he put hundreds of millions of dollars into that were failures. But he said, if you don't want to do anything innovative, don't ever do anything new. So he has a tolerance for it. And again, it doesn't have to be like you're pursuing failure and all the rest of it. It's like you're pursuing growth. You're pursuing experiments. Like I just call them life experiments. And some experiments are going to pay off, and some experiments aren't. And you don't actually you kind of don't care either way, as long as you're learning and growing through them. And so that'll be the fourth. And the fifth thing is that they have an amazing support team. So Gary, you're a force of nature. I've described you that before. You're a ball of fire and energy, and you've got an amazing passion and energy. But I tell you, I know that you attribute a significant amount of your success because you've surrounded yourself with some amazing people. Your Absolutely. Team at ELC is what makes it all happen. Like you've got the magic, you got the vision, you've got the crusading charisma. But man, if you weren't surrounded by a strong support team, it would just be freaking mess. It would just be chaos.
You got it.
Chaos without order. It'd be mayhem, right?
Can you imagine?
But that's what these great guys and gals did. Is they went and found great people, and because they were great people themselves, great people would follow them, and great people wanted to be part of what they were about. So it's your personal team, it is your associations. Gary is one of our what we call Dirty Dozen. It was just a group I put together. I needed friends who were high caliber, who thought like I thought and had the same kind of ambition. And so I took a lot of the people that I have met and mentored over the many decades and selected my favorites. And Gary's is one of them. And I need it for me because those are my associations that challenge me to rise to the equation. In the very beginning, Gary, of this crisis, the only people that I were feeding resources to, sharing what I was sharing with my team, was the Dirty Dozen group, because those are my peeps that I not only want to contribute in their lives, but they're the ones that are bolstering me. They're the ones that are holding me to a higher standard. Even if it's in my head, it's like, it's got to be worthy of these guys and gals that are part of this inner circle. So that is the fifth thing, is they surround themselves by really great people, not just the people who work for them, but their peer group, their mentors, their advisors. They make the investment in being around the right associations that are going to take them to the next level.
Wow, Darren, you know what? I can't thank you enough. I mean, it is such a privilege to feature you today. And I know how busy you are, and I know how you've been called on by so many during this time. And, I am living proof that, find someone that can influence the way you think, to drive your habits, to make changes, to be, passionate. And I think, as we all know, just be a good person. And, if you're not, it always eventually reveals itself sooner or later. And you have been instrumental, Darren, I promise you, instrumental in my life. And, that DD, that Dirty Dozen group, some of these guys have become our dear friends, and we've been communicating all the way through this. And you have shared so much with me personally. And I want to make sure that and your team knows, the A team, which, thank you for the accolades and comments on my team and our group. And we are very, very lucky. We have the best people in the Canadian mortgage space, but also to your amazing A team, to Kylie, who helped set this up. If you enjoyed this last, sort of 70 minutes, and you want to reach out and you want to, thank Darren, I want to give you a couple of his social media handles. His Twitter is at Darren Hardy. His Instagram is at Darren J Hardy on Instagram. And his Facebook is facebook.com/Darren Hardy fan, /Darren Hardy fan. And the Darren Daily that we spoke of. And I want to be really clear with this. Darren did not ask for anything. I called him up and he said, Gare, he said, I'd love to help you. I said, I know what's going on right now. He was so generous. And I just, I wanted to share Darren with you because, I think for a lot of you, it's going to be the spark, that ignites, this desire for lifelong learning, as he just went through. And that wrap on those 5 top undisputable attributes of a top performer, of a leader, was incredibly awesome. If you're on this call, before we hang up, also, please reach out to me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Let us know what you thought of the call. I do a lot of this stuff, as much as I can. And we love to hear the feedback, good, bad, indifferent. Darren, I owe you big time, dude. You got a huge deposit in the bank. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being one of the most powerful leaders in the world today. And thank you, most importantly, for caring. I'll reach out afterwards, Darren. But thank you again, guys. Can't wait to hear. And get on that Darren Daily, because it will change the way you think at the start of every day going forward. Appreciate it, pal.
Bye-bye.